Hey guys, this is the 6th installment in my video project Kingly Endeavors, where I try to read every one of Stephen King's novels in chronological order and hopefully post about a video a week about it. This week I'm on his 5th book, The Dead Zone, and The Dead Zone is fine. One of the good things about assessing, reviewing, whatever you want to call it, The Dead Zone is that this is the first one, although it's the 5th book of his that I've read in this project, it's the first one that doesn't have, like, a really sizable legacy behind it. A movie was made out of it in the 80s, but it really isn't as famous as the other ones. There was also a TV show for some time. I never watched it. I don't know how that did. It felt while I was reading it, and after the fact, like I had a little more breathing room to sort of reach my own conclusions. Dead Zone is about a guy named Johnny Smith, and I hate that name. Most of the criticism that I've come across, concerning it, has said that the character being named Johnny Smith is supposed to reflect how he's like the ultimate everyman, and how the supernatural thing that happens to him is ever more supernatural because it happened to someone who is just prodigiously average. Still, it annoyed me. I was, however, relieved, like later on in the book, Johnny Smith is preparing to do something duplicitous. And some guy asks him for his name, and he goes, "Oh, Johnny Smith," and the guy gives him a look like, that is an alias. But anyway, so it's about this guy named Johnny Smith. He's a school teacher, and he one night is in this cataclysmic car accident. He falls into a coma for 4.5 years, and when he comes out of that coma, he has, ostensibly as a result of his brain injury, this ability that when he touches people, he can see sometimes their future, sometimes he sees, like, horrible things that they've done, things that are happening that pertain to their life, and it's happening right now, but somewhere else. He touches one woman, and he can tell that her house is on fire and that she needs to call the fire department. It's sort of a nebulous skill. King has said in this big book about Stephen King that I have that he wanted it to be more plot-driven than the previous novels, and you can definitely feel that in the beginning. And I think I was very vague and like way less coherent than I thought I was being in the previous video about The Stand, where I talked about, like, plot versus story, etc. Like how The Stand was a masterpiece written by a masterful storyteller and all that jazz. This one feels like it was written by a professional. It feels somewhat cold. And I don't mean to suggest that this is like a compromise of integrity on King's behalf, but this book feels like it was written because he wanted to write a book. It doesn't feel like there was a burst of inspiration and he wanted to do... I think there's something very personal about Carrie, The Shining, and The Stand, not so much Salem's Lot. The Dead Zone, though, although you can tell that King, like, really cares about it, clearly he put a lot of effort into it, it's very smooth, it's very engaging, it's very propulsive. Nonetheless, it just feels so calculated, like, we're taking this step so that this thing can happen. Like, toward the end, Johnny predicts this thing, and some big drama ensues from one of his predictions, and you can tell that this prediction is a device, that this whole 30 or 40 page section is only taking place so that it will lend legitimacy to his going on and doing that sketchy thing that he's going to do in the end. So yeah, it was good, but it did feel kind of cold. Another thing that was interesting about reading this book in this series is that, as I mentioned before, it was the first book that I've come across where it doesn't really have a major reputation preceding it. Consequently, I was better able to sort of project my own ideas on it and take from it more personal things. And I'm hoping that the way I read this and the way I responded to it will sort of set a standard for how the rest of this project goes. This is about a guy who comes out of a coma after 4.5 years, and he feels like he's in a radically different world. He has this weird skill set that he has to find some way of using, or at least living with, for the rest of his life. He's debilitated by these terrible headaches. His body is shot to shit. One of the ways in which it was so resonant for me reading it now is that, like, in May, it will be 3 years since I've graduated college, which is baffling to think about. And yeah, the main character, Johnny, has all these people around him, but there's this perpetual feeling of isolation. I don't know, not to get too maudlin about it, but there is this feeling like you get out of college and you were trained in something in particular, and now you have this skill set, or sort of an index of facts or whatever, and now here you are, you're out in this world that's somewhat foreign, and you have to kind of prove yourself. Or if not prove yourself to anyone necessarily, you have to find a way to make do. I don't know, I feel like I should have more to say about this, but it was a very quick read. It didn't seem, like, rich with feeling. It didn't feel like this came from a part of his soul or heart when he wrote this. Yeah, so regrettably there isn't very much to say about The Dead Zone. I very much enjoyed reading it, and I went through it fairly quickly, but for now, I guess that's all there is to be said. So, excuse my dishevelment. This is my last day of vacation, and then I have to get a haircut and shave tomorrow before I go back to work, so I should be looking a little more presentable with the next video. So, thanks for watching. Next week I will be doing Firestarter, and yeah, until then, Constant Reader, thanks for watching.